The Ielts Listening test tests your ability to understand spoken English in different situations. The test lasts for approximately 30 minutes and has 4 parts. In each part, you listen to a recording and answer 10 questions. Before each part, you hear information about who is speaking, the situation, and the topic. The voice on the recording then tells you which questions to look at, and you read the instructions for the task on the question paper. The recordings in each section are divided into parts, and there is generally a pause between each part so that you can read the questions before you listen. After the pause, you hear a continuation of the same recording. You should use the pause to read the task so that you're ready to answer the questions. You hear each part of the recording once only. You should answer the questions as you listen and write your answers directly onto the question paper. You have 10 minutes at the end of the test to copy your answers onto the separate answer sheet. In part 1 of the test, you hear a conversation between 2 people. The conversation is generally about living, studying, or working in an English-speaking country. For example, you may hear a conversation between an employer and an employee, or one between a student and a college administrator or 2 friends talking about how to spend their free time. The conversation has a purpose, such as giving instructions, asking for information, making a booking, or making plans. Most of the questions test your ability to understand the detailed information that is exchanged between the speakers and the conclusions they reach. You often have to complete the missing information in a form, a table, or a set of notes. Sometimes you may have to choose the correct answer from a list of alternatives. In part 2 of the test, you hear one speaker giving a talk to a group of people. The talk is generally about living, studying, or working in an English-speaking country, for example, an employer talking to a group of employees, or someone making an announcement. The talk or announcement has an aim, such as giving instructions. Most of the questions, therefore, test your ability to understand detailed information. The questions usually ask you to choose the correct answer from a list of alternatives. You may have to answer multiple choice questions, for example, or match the information you hear to one answer in a longer list of options. Sometimes the questions in part 2 are based on visual material, and you may, for example, have to choose the correct labels to go on a map. Sometimes you may have to complete missing information in a set of sentences. In part 3 of the test, you hear a conversation between 2 or 3 people in an academic setting. The conversation is generally about an academic topic, and the 2 main speakers are exchanging both information and ideas. For example, the conversation may involve 2 people who are working together on a research project, or a meeting between a tutor and 2 students reporting on their progress. The speakers may agree or disagree on certain points before coming to a conclusion. Most of the questions test your ability to follow the ideas being discussed, to identify each speaker's point of view, and to understand the outcome of their discussions. You need to listen to what the speakers say about each issue to be sure of the answer. The questions usually ask you to choose the correct answer from a list of options, A, B, C, etc. You may have to answer multiple choice questions, for example, or match the information you hear to one answer in a longer list of options. Sometimes the questions in part 3 are based on visual material, and you have to choose the correct labels to go on a diagram or flowchart. In part 4 of the test, you hear one speaker giving a lecture or presentation. The talk is about an academic topic, and the speaker is discussing the topic in depth. You could, for example, hear about some research that the speaker has been involved in, or the speaker may be discussing different people's ideas and opinions on a subject. The lecture or presentation has a purpose, such as updating the audience on developments in a field of research or providing students with an overview of an area of study. Most of the questions test your ability to understand and make a note of the detailed information the speaker presents, as well as following the arguments. Most of the questions ask you to write a word or short phrase to show that you've understood the information and arguments that you hear. You often have to complete the missing information in a set of sentences or notes that summarize the main ideas discussed in the talk. Sometimes you may have to choose the correct answer from a list of alternatives, A, B, C, etc. Please write which Ielts listening part is difficult for you. Like, share, and subscribe.